A series of attacks kills at least 150 in a Shiite suburb of Baghdad, one of the single most bloody days since the US-led invasion. I'm Kamal Santamaria and this is the Al Jazeera News Hour. Also coming up on the programme, 2 more Palestinians are killed in Gaza as Israel continues an offensive it says is designed to stop rocket attacks.
I'm David Foster in Beirut, where the funeral has been held of the murdered Cabinet Minister Pierre Jamal amid extraordinary scenes of mourning. Our live coverage of the day's events continues.
I'm Felicity Barr in London. The top story from our European news centre. Former Russian spy Alexander Litvinenko is in a critical condition after being poisoned. Friends say he's on a life support machine.
I'm Dave Maris in Washington. The top story from the Americas. While U.S. troops celebrate the Thanksgiving holiday, Baghdad sees a day of horrid violence.
Hello there. It's been one of the bloodiest days in Iraq since the 2003 US-led invasion. Bomb and mortar attacks in the capital, Baghdad, have killed more than 150 people and left around 250 wounded. In the day's deadliest incident, multiple suicide car bombs exploded in a Shiite suburb, and soon after, a Sunni neighbourhood was mortared in an apparent revenge attack. An indefinite curfew has been imposed in the capital, and leaders of Iraq's 3 main sectarian groups have made a joint appeal for calm on state TV. Our Iraq correspondent Hoda Abdelhamid has this report.
Baghdad out of control. Several car bombs exploded in the Shiite stronghold of Sadr city, followed by a round of mortars. The response was swift. A round of mortars was then lobbed at a Sunni stronghold of the capital. It's the latest in a series of revenge attacks between Sunnis and Shiites, but each is becoming bolder and deadlier. In Sadr city, fire engines rushed to the scene to try and control the blaze. Iraqi officials have called it one of the most devastating attacks since the US invasion 4 years ago. And elsewhere in Baghdad, heavy clashes broke out at the health ministry. According to security officials, Sunni gunmen clashed with guards at a Shiite-controlled ministry building. After a 3-hour battle, the attackers finally backed off. Sectarian killings have gripped the capital in recent weeks, but this latest attack is one of the worst yet. Hoda Abdelhamid, Al Jazeera.
And Hoda joins me now to discuss this further. Hoda, let's first talk about this television appeal from the 3 Iraqi leaders. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I think, Kamal, we've seen most leaders on TV tonight. We've seen a very somber Prime Minister Maliki who pointed the fingers at Iraqi politicians. He did not name anyone, but he said that some politicians are causing this sectarian divide, and he pointed the finger at them and told them to take their responsibility. We saw this tension within the National Assembly. Just 2 days ago, Sunni and Shiite leaders were having quite a fight live on television, and that was during the National Assembly. Then we saw a show of force from President Jalal Talabani, who's a Kurd. With him were Abdulaziz Al-Hakim, who's one of the most senior Shiite clerics and the most influential one, and the Sunni Vice President Tariq al-Hashemi, and they were all 3 together calling again on people to calm down, saying that the security forces, the plans of the security forces for Baghdad needs to be revisited, some new ideas, some new vision needs to come up, but just telling people to stay calm for the time being. They also called on the security forces not to take sides in the fight and to just do their job as security forces.
So quite significant then that you get 3 particularly 2 warring factions, if you like, sectarian factions, coming together to actually say, settle down, everyone.
Well, I think there is a realization that things are going really out of control. The revenge attacks, it is a cycle of revenge attacks. They're getting bolder by the day, deadlier by the day, and you can feel that all the politicians together they understand that this is a very alarming moment in Iraq these days. We also heard just now, just a few minutes ago, from Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani, the spokesman of the government, read a communique from him, a statement to the Iraqi people, calling also on the Iraqi people to stay calm. So there is an effort at the political level to really, everybody realizes that Iraq is tiptoeing into a civil war, and it's about time things are taken back into control. Now, tomorrow, the Security Committee of the National Assembly's meeting the meeting is going to be presided by Jalal Talabani, but I'm sure that throughout the day we'll see again Sunni and Shia politicians and clerics standing together, calling on everybody to unify.
Just quickly, Hoda, let me ask you about the curfew as well. Obviously, another significant move. Do curfews really work in Baghdad, especially given the level of violence we've seen today? Well,
curfews work as long as they last. So you'll have a curfew, which is an indefinite curfew. We don't know how long this one would last, but they last a day or two or three. I think what the government is going to try to do is, during that time where people are at home, is going to try to bring in more security forces, maybe the Iraqi army, maybe call in some of the coalition forces, and then people get back on the streets, and that's when the test is, and usually, unfortunately, there is violence just as soon as the curfew is lifted.
Indeed. Hoda Abdelhamid, our Iraq correspondent, thanks for joining us here in the studio. And just a bit of news coming in through from the AP news agency as well, that Baghdad International Airport has been closed to all commercial flights. That's been announced on state-run television. Baghdad International Airport closed to all commercial flights, in addition to an indefinite curfew on the city. Well, let's go to that city. I'm joined on the line now by Ahmed Rushdie, a journalist in Baghdad. Ahmed, what can you tell us from Baghdad?
Well, actually, what's happening now is something extraordinary. Actually, the casualties that have been seen in Asad city and also in Al-Alamiyya and in Flair and in Hamra Aliyah, which is the majority of Sunni, while Qadr is the majority of Shia, is a big loss for all of the Iraqis. This is first. Secondly, actually today, the body of Dr. Abdulsalam al-Mashtani, who is the head of the Commissionery Institute, which is belongs to the higher education, Minister of Higher Education.
Okay, we're having a few sound issues. It sounds like they were having a bit of trouble hearing what Ahmed's got to say. We will return to that a bit later. Meanwhile, a 68-year-old woman has blown herself up, wounding 3 soldiers near the Jabalia refugee camp in northern Gaza. 8 other Palestinians have also been killed in the second day of Israel's current operation aimed at halting the rocket fire from the area at Israeli towns and villages. Our correspondent David Chater has the details.
We watched a very unequal battle unfolding on the outskirts of Bet Hanoun. Israeli tanks pitched against a handful of Palestinian fighters armed only with automatic rifles. Swarming behind them, young men and boys with nothing but stones, anger and defiance to throw at the tanks. At such close quarters, casualties were inevitable. One of the crowd paid with his life, shot twice in the abdomen. He bled to death before he reached the hospital. They've been met with heavy machine gun fire to keep them at bay and to prevent the laying of crude landmines in the surrounding fields. The Israeli army has codenamed the attack Operation Suitable Combination, spreading a net in the north of Gaza to root out the Qassam rocket cells. It's now in its 3rd day.
On this particular section of the front line, just outside Bet Hanoun, the battle has been ebbing and flowing in intensity all day. But now we have evidence the Israeli army is throwing their net wider. They've opened an attack on an entirely different front.
Behind us, Israeli tanks were moving into position. And helicopter gunships appeared above us. Civilians as well as Palestinian fighters are falling on this battlefield. Trapped in the middle of the firefight, the number of school children being injured is climbing steeply. The Israeli army is stepping up the number of targeted killings, vowing to attack the institutions and infrastructure of Hamas. The fight is just beginning. David Chater, Al Jazeera, in the northern Gaza Strip.